let's talk about now when it's okay for you to go out and be able to splurge and buy things that you want, not that you necessarily need. And the way I like to break this down is there are 3 phases to building wealth, to climbing to wealth. In phase number 1, this is really that foundational phase. In this first phase of you building wealth, you got to start by saving a little bit of money. You got to have the first $2,000 in the bank to protect you against an emergency. This is not $2,000 in the stock market. This is $2,000 in a savings account that's there to protect you against an emergency. Not to buy a TV, not to buy a car, not to buy something else. It's to protect you against an emergency. An extra $2,000 put aside, and you were to pay down your credit card debt. In this phase 1, you are not allowed to go out and spend money and splurge at all. If you have credit card debt, or if you do not have $2,000 saved up, this is where you got to be extremely careful with how you spend your money, because you got to get past this phase 1 as fast as possible. This is where I like to say you are in the financial danger zone. If you don't get $2,000 saved up, and if you're in credit card debt, you're in that financial danger zone. And you got to get past this before you can worry about spending money on anything that is that luxury, that non-necessity, because right now you are making everybody else rich. That credit card debt that you have is making the credit card company rich, and it's making everybody else rich, and it's at your expense. And I want you to keep your money in your pocket, but in order for you to do that, you got to keep your money for yourself. Use your money to keep the savings, use your money to pay down this credit card debt as fast as possible. Then let's move on to phase 2. Phase 2 is now you've already done this. Now you're starting to build a financial system. One of the things that I like to talk about, if you watched any of my videos, is maybe you follow something like a 75-15-10 plan, which says that for every dollar that you earn from here on out, 75 cents is the maximum that you can spend, 15 cents is the minimum that you're investing, 10 cents is the minimum that you're saving. So this savings money that you're putting, this 10 cents, this is money to protect you against an emergency. So your goal is to have somewhere between 3 months to a year worth of savings put aside to protect you against an emergency. Again, this is not savings to buy a car or a down payment on a home. This is savings to protect you in case something were to go wrong. Then 15 cents of every dollar that you earn, 15% of your income is going into your investments. Now you might be saying, well, what are these investments? Well, this can be investments into your income, into your career. This can be investment to pay down your debts, your other consumer debts. This can be investments into the stock market, into rental properties. This is something that you're using to build your wealth. And then this 75 cents, the 75% of your income is the maximum that you can spend. So now, once you achieve phase 1, this is where now you have more money being used to be spent, because in this phase, you want to have as much money as possible doing this. To save your $2,000, pay down the credit card debt, you want to do this as fast as possible. The most financial sacrifices are going to be right here. Once you get here into phase 2, well, now you have 75% of your income to spend. And some of you are going to say, Jaspreet, how in the world am I going to live off of 75% of my income? Listen, if you want to become wealthy, you cannot spend 100% of your income, period. And I know this is going to be tough, but if you really can't figure out how to spend less than what you make, you're going to have to do 2 things. Number 1, figure out how immigrants live, because immigrants can live off of very little money. And then number 2, figure out how you can earn more money. Maybe that means you got to take this money, investment money, to figure out how you can get a new certificate, get a new job, get a new career. This way you can go out and get more money, because you got to have the ability to spend less than what you make, and you don't want to be spending 100% of what you make. You want to at least be putting a quarter of every dollar that you earn aside to make you wealthy into your savings and your investments. So now, during this phase, this is where you're starting your investing and you're starting to pay down your non-mortgage debts. These are things like your student loans, things like your car payments. You want to start paying this down. Now at this point, let's say you want to go out and buy yourself a nice $10,000 Rolex, or something that you don't need. You want to buy a nice luxury car. Now, at least you're not in this danger zone. But if you want to do that, fine. But you got to make sure you can afford it first. Now, what does it mean to really afford these non-necessity luxuries? And the way that I did it for myself is I followed the rule of 5, which is if I can't buy 5 of them, I can't afford 1 of them, especially in this phase. Now, that's tough. If I want to buy a $10,000 Rolex, that means I got to have at least $50,000 put aside in cash before I can go out and afford that $10,000 Rolex. If I want to go out and buy myself a $60,000 car, I better have a lot more money put aside. I better have the $300,000 put aside before I can afford the $60,000 car, because I'm not financing cars. And you're going to say, Jaspreet, that's not practical. Well, what do you want first? Do you want to have the BMW in your driveway, or do you want the investments that are paying for your BMW? And that's where you really got to decide what's more important to you. Yes, it is difficult. Yes, it takes sacrifice, but it is also possible if you can stay disciplined and if you can stick with it. I call it a decade of sacrifice. The things that I'm talking about are not things you're going to do overnight or things you're going to do in 6 months. A decade of sacrifice is you're putting in a decade to spend less and earn more so you can invest like crazy, because after 10 years you can see significant changes to your financial situation and you and your family can be in a whole new tax bracket, you can be in a whole new wealth bracket, and you can set up not just yourself but your family and generations after you for a completely different lifestyle, but that requires you to make some sacrifices. So now if you want to buy a car, fine. Buy a car that you can afford with cash, which means, you know what, for the next few years, you might be driving around in a used Toyota Camry or a used Toyota Corolla or a used Honda Accord, even though you're used to financing a BMW 4 Series. That is very difficult. But if you can do that, well, that's more money for you to be investing your money. Phase 3 now is a little bit different. Phase 3 is now where you're working to pay down the rest of your consumer debts. Now you no longer have your student loans, you no longer have your car payments, you're also working to pay down your mortgage here as well. But because you've been investing your money, now your investments are starting to get to the point where they can fund your expenses. I like to invest my money for cash flow. Cash flow is when you invest your money into the stock market, you're generating dividends. Every 3 months, you're getting this cash deposited into your account. These dividends are getting deposited in your account, which are constantly going to be reinvested until this cash flow is enough to cover your basic living expenses. And it's not just in stocks where you can get this, you can also get this cash flow from real estate. You go out and you invest in rental properties that are cash flowing. You're buying single family homes, apartment complexes, office buildings, whatever it might be, for the purpose of generating cash flow each and every month. Once this cash flow that you're generating is exceeding your expenses, now you can take your foot off of the gas pedal and you don't have to keep reinvesting so aggressively in this, because now this cash flow can cover your expenses and the money that you're generating from your job, from your business, everything else. Well, now this is just supplemental. Now at this point, when you can buy the things that you want, you want to buy that $10,000 Rolex, you want to buy a nice BMW, you want to buy whatever, this nice expensive thing, but you can pay for it from your cash flow, from your investments. Well, now you can afford it because it's not coming out of your hard-earned money. If you enjoyed this clip and you want to continue your financial education journey, I have another video that I think you'll love. All you got to do is click that button right over there. And for those of you who want to stay up to date on the top finance and business news, you can join Market Briefs, my free financial newsletter, by clicking that button below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.